On behalf of all of us at the Tepper School of Business, I'm John Sangenberger. I'm Executive Director of Alumni Relations, and I'm delighted to greet you on this beautiful fall day here in Pittsburgh and welcome you to today's Tepper webinar on the entrepreneurial journey of fifth season with Dave Mawhinney of the Schwartz Center for Entrepreneurship. We're committed to always providing you in the Tepper community and our guests access to our outstanding faculty, alumni, and student experts via a multitude of lifelong learning opportunities. And so we're glad to have you in our virtual classroom today. We're also so happy to have our students back on campus again and to be in this amazing Tepper School building and to have the Schwartz Center, a place of such activity here on our campus. First, a couple of announcements. We want to first let you know that we have nominations open now for our 2022 Tepper Alumni Awards. And we'd like you to go ahead and nominate a classmate, nominate someone in the alumni community that you think is deserving of one of our 5 awards that we have. We also have 2 exciting webinars coming up for you in the month of October. We have an alumni panel on the challenges facing corporate boards, hosted by Professor Bob Damon and a panel of alumni, and a refresher on negotiations with Professor Lori Weingart. Many of you probably had her for your negotiations course at Tepper. Now, before I introduce today's speaker, let me also thank you for your continued support of the Tepper School and Carnegie Mellon University and the Schwartz Center. It's your support that allows us to continue our vital academic mission. Now, let me introduce our speakers. Hosting our discussion today is a man who almost needs no introduction, Dave Mawhinney, alumnus from the class of 1990. He is Executive Director of the Schwartz Center for Entrepreneurship and Executive Director of the Don Jones Center for Entrepreneurial Studies and serves as one of our Associate Teaching Professors of Entrepreneurship. He's also a Managing Director of the Open Field Entrepreneurs Fund and Advisory Board member to Innovation Works Alpha Lab, Pittsburgh Equity Partners, and Carnegie Mellon University's Project Olympus. He's a serial entrepreneur and, as I say, the most networked or connected of all of our alumni. He's just an amazing man. We're so glad to have him with us. He earned his MBA with distinction from Carnegie Mellon University, the Tepper School in 1990, and a BS in physics, summa cum laude from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. In 2017, he received the Tepper School Alumni Achievement Award. Now, joining Dave today are 3 accomplished recent alumni. First is Austin Webb. He is CEO and co-founder at Fifth Season. You're going to learn about that today. He co-founded the business while he was obtaining his MBA at Carnegie Mellon, after a successful career in investment banking with roles with FBR Capital Markets in DC and New York. Fifth Season recently opened the first fully automated robotic vertical farm in Braddock, PA. You'll see more of that today. Austin received the Pittsburgh Dealmaker of the Year award from Smart Business Network, and the company was recognized by Fast Company's list of world-changing ideas. He's a native of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and holds a BA in finance from Wofford College. Joining him is Grant Vandenbush. Grant is from the class of 2090. He's the Chief Category Officer at Fifth Season. And in his role, he's focused on creating a new food system that ensures that all customers are connected to the experience and value of fresh local food. He previously held a variety of international operations and strategy roles at General Mills, and that's where he discovered his passion for high-tech sustainable food system. He holds a bachelor's degree in supply chain management from Michigan State University, and of course was here for Tepper for his MBA. And our third alumnus on the panel is Emily Ellis. Emily is an MBA from the class of 2021, just graduated a year ago. She is head of consumer products at Fifth Season and has an amazing new role there. She's focused on leveraging Fifth Season's game-changing farming system to create food products that introduce customers to the joy of truly fresh food. She previously held a variety of product development roles at Mondelez and was co-founded a robotics startup while at CMU. She holds a bachelor's degree in food science from Penn State University and her MBA from here at the Tepper School. What a great team we have. So excited about the presentation today. Now let me hand over the microphone to Dave Mawhinney to lead today's discussion.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. And this is an exciting time. I've really had the wonderful opportunity of working with this fifth season team for over 5 years when it was originally just a twinkle in Austin's eye when he joined Tepper in, I think, 2016. And to see the progress that they've made and the team that they've built has just been heartwarming. And it's really been a CMU Tepper story. Obviously, the three folks you're going to meet with and talk with today are full-time on this business, but they've been supported by a number of Tepper alum over time. Tony Moscato, class of 1987, has been a key advisory board member to fifth season from the very beginning. Bruce Gebhard, class of 1984, has been an early investor in the company and a connector extraordinaire. And then John Levinson, who funded our Moonshot boardroom in the Swartz Center, was an early investor as well. So, this really is a Carnegie Mellon / Tepper story, and we're excited to tell it today. I'm reminded when John went through my resume there, whenever my wife sees that, her response to is, see, Dave, I told you couldn't keep a job. So it's not that impressive, but I've really been fortunate to get to know a lot of you. And as I'm looking through the list of participants today, I see former Swartz fellows, former colleagues in Waze, and I've seen people who are the inventors of the robotics and the autonomy industry listed on here. So I think it's just amazing how Carnegie Mellon and the Tepper School have blossomed over the last 10 to 15 years. And some of the numbers are kind of stark. In the last decade, we've created over 400 startups at Carnegie Mellon who've raised a collective $7+ billion that has been pumped into the Western Pennsylvania economy. Just last week, the Startup Genome, which is an analyst that covers the worldwide startup ecosystem, ranked us in the top 20 of startup cities in the world for the first time, putting us on par with the Bostons, Austins, and Seattles of the world. So we're really excited about that. And it's because we've had great companies. Duolingo went public a little bit earlier in the fall. Aurora, which acquired Uber ATG, is going public via SPAC at any moment at a $13+ billion valuation. And all of this is happening right here in Pittsburgh. And when I think of, what are the reasons for that, I'm always harkened back to the invention of artificial intelligence in the 1950s by Herb Simon and Alan Newell, Red Whittaker's pioneering work of robotics in the 1970s and 80s, the autonomy challenges by DARPA in 2005 and 6 and 7, that have been the basis for our evolution. I argue, I think convincingly right now, that Pittsburgh has the most advanced AI, robotics, and autonomy startup ecosystem in the world. We have over 100 companies in the region employing over 10,000 people right now. So that's pretty amazing. And typically we think of, things like the autonomous vehicles that are out there or the AI-based driven language learning like Duolingo. But it's really funny that, robotics and artificial intelligence can be applied in very different ways. And I think fifth season embodies that way of really using robotics and artificial intelligence to manufacture food in a much more efficient, much more environmentally friendly way. And so with that, what I'd like to do to kick us off is show you a video tour of fifth season's advanced manufacturing plant for food.
This is fifth season, a food system pioneer reinventing fresh food. Behind these walls, we've converted vertical farming into smart manufacturing. Here in our flagship facility, we have built the first end-to-end automated platform run entirely by our proprietary software, including automated seeding, growing, harvesting, and packaging. This entire run of show is set into motion by the proprietary software system. We've nicknamed the system the Brain, and it starts with a unique pathfinding algorithm. With every step monitored via unique QR codes, we've created full connectivity of data, from seed to packaging, all the way to consumer feedback. We collect over 25,000 data points per growing tray, equaling unprecedented traceability, food safety, and quality. Within our biodomes, we have the equivalent of 200 acres of field agriculture in just half an acre of 2D square feet. This is double the production capacity of other vertical farms, and it's all thanks to our design and robotics. We've created a 100% hands-free farming system with patented growing trays and deep storage rack integration. This means no scissor lifts and no wasted space or labor. Our software brain leverages programmed grow recipes to ensure crops are raised to the same level of perfection every single time. This is true controlled environment agriculture. Our rigorous QA standards and human feedback train our AI, which is constantly learning, adapting, and optimizing. This symphony of humans and robots working together is an example of true cobotics. Across our wonderland of over 42 synchronous robots, our smart system is optimizing energy use down to every individual bot. Plus, our smart innovation around existing manufacturing standards means we achieve more automation, yet less CapEx per square foot. Within 1 year, we can grow nearly 1 million pounds of produce, with a shelf life 3 times that of field-grown greens, all while using 97% less land and up to 95% less water. Compared to other indoor farms, Fifth Season has half the labor, double the density, twice the returns on capital, best-in-class economics. Compared to field-grown, Fifth Season offers a direct-to-customer supply chain with superior taste and freshness that lasts 3 times longer. This is a whole new era of food. Your definition of fresh radically changed. Your idea of what fresh should taste like dramatically upgraded.
As impressive as that film is, I was just down there at the plant this morning with some leadership from Carnegie Mellon, and it is so much even more impressive in person. So hopefully some of you in the future will get a chance to visit. And I'm the anti-foodie, right? To me, food is fuel, and I was so skeptical when the team was telling me how they could improve the flavor, of these greens. And I'm like, yeah, right. And then I took my first handful down when the plant was just getting started, and I put it in my mouth, and my goodness, it was a flavor explosion. These are so good. Right now, if you live in the Pittsburgh area, you can have these greens delivered to your door every week, which I do religiously. And they're also available in Giant Eagle and other Sheetz convenience stores, and even on campus in some of the restaurants here. So if you haven't tried the Fifth Season salads and greens, the time is now. To get us kicked off, I'd like to start with Austin and ask Austin, so what is the genesis of this company? How did it get started, and how did you use your journey at Carnegie Mellon to help you build this company?
Yeah, I certainly didn't imagine that it'd be a modern farmer, quote unquote, if you will. So very exciting. As mentioned earlier, I was doing financial analysis, investment banking, but I really got the entrepreneurial fever, wanted to try and solve hard problems through entrepreneurship, make a positive dent in the world, right? It's the same fever that most folks inevitably get. And so decided that I wanted to go to Carnegie Mellon to get my MBA in order to start a company. Why? Because I believe that robotics will positively disrupt every industry in the world. And I wanted to go to a school where it was the number one school in computer science and robotics. And as Dave was mentioning earlier, it's one of the robotics capitals of the world. And I wanted to go to a school that was top 5 entrepreneurship. And so Dave himself was a big reason for that. But it was all about going and meeting people smarter than me to try and see if we could combine powers with some of the things that I do know in order to do exactly what I wanted to do, right? That positive dent in the world. And month one, I met a tall, lanky guy, and he says, "Hey, my name's Austin. Do you know much about vertical farming?" And I said, "Hey, my name's Austin too." And yes, I do. It seems like it could be the future, particularly with LEDs getting to a place where it makes it viable. And the other Austin said, yeah, well, you got to go take a look at what these farms look like. The labor is insane, and it kind of kills the whole idea. And after looking at that, we realized that it was more than just one or two robotic systems. And we felt, him being a mechanical engineer and roboticist from a blueberry farm, and me being a business person, we really didn't have the entire IoT software related piece in order to make this idea of an entire vertical farm system work in the way that we believed it should for the future. And so we brought on a third co-founder who happens to be my brother. So somehow 2 Austins and 2 Webbs out of 3 co-founders. But that's when Fifth Season was really born. And really when we realized that it's not vertical farming, it's smart manufacturing. We just happen to manufacture living organisms. And so I started using every single class project possible throughout my Tepper career and classes with Dave and others in order to try and move the ball forward as much as possible. And then leveraging the network, right? Dave was mentioning a few of those folks like Tony and Bruce, Dave himself. And I would say, we raised our first $400K on the first day of my second year. We raised just around $1 million, so right around graduation in 2017. And since then, we've been able to raise about $75 million to date. And I think over 50 of that is a direct connection through CMU and or Dave, right, in the CMU network. So mighty, as we always say. So it's been really exciting. Feel really fortunate. And then started just bring on, as I always say, people smarter than me. And that's where Grant and Emily certainly come in as well.
Right. Very interesting. So Grant, you graduated in 2019. How quickly and early in your journey at Tepper and Carnegie Mellon did you get introduced to Fifth Season, and how did that evolve quickly into a more than full-time job as a full-time student?
Well, Dave, I think as you know, I got introduced to what was Robotny at the time. I think actually before I even wrote my first tuition check. I was at the welcome event. I wasn't sure if I was or was not going to come to Carnegie Mellon to do my MBA. I was thinking about it, but the food company I was working at the time, General Mills, had given me a really cushy job offer in Switzerland. And I found myself at Welcome Weekend in the Entrepreneurship 101 session. And about 2 minutes into listening to Dave give his pitch on how you had to really say no to the man and go forge your own path, I knew that the place for me was going to be right under that wing of Dave there. And so I went up to you and talked to you right after that session. And you said, there's really cool companies around here, like a company called Robotny that you should really look at and think about. And I left Welcome Weekend, and I think, a bad growing pun intended, you had planted the seed that was going to sprout right then and there that day. I got onto campus, and as you remember, I was trying to some of my own entrepreneurial endeavors. My first couple months on campus, I was actually trying to launch a regenerative farming cryptocurrency company, which being around the Swartz Center, I could find all the coders I needed to. I could find all the tech talent I needed to. But what was really special was that CMU network and having the access to meet somebody like Austin, who was coming through the CMU Center, and sit down with somebody and just realize right away that there was such a clear alignment of not just interests and vision for how to change the food system, but such a clear alignment for how I could immediately help out the team. So I think Austin, I worked for free for about 6 months. Then I worked at internship, and Austin, I think being the leader he is, was in having walked the path that I was about to walk, knew that the second year of MBA, you have a rare opportunity in some cases where you can really push yourself from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So Austin sat me down on the last day of my internship and said, hey, you could do what I did and leverage every single class to really help this business thrive. And so my whole second year of my MBA, I was full-time work and full-time school. It's actually when we rebranded from Robotny to Fifth Season. So I leveraged a lot of my courses to really change the impact of Fifth Season. And so since then, I started out business development and strategy, a little bit of the hacker or the hustler mindset. And then since then, we've moved me into the chief category officer role, which is overseeing our marketing and new product development. As many of you can see on our website that Dave mentioned, fifthseasonfresh.com, where if you're in Pittsburgh, we'll ship directly to you. We have both greens and salad kits. And salad kits is something completely unique to us that we would not have if it wasn't for Emily here.
Thank goodness it was NFW to NFTs. Emily, you're a native Pittsburgher, went to Shayside Academy. I didn't know you, but I knew you existed because your parents were in business with a good friend of mine. And I was so excited to meet you when you came to Carnegie Mellon. And I think as soon as I heard you were from the food industry, it was I was scheming in the back of my mind to figure out how to get you connected to Fifth Season. But why don't you tell a little bit about sort of your journey at Carnegie Mellon and how you got involved with Fifth Season and how that's led to the unique direct-to-consumer products that you're heading up now?
Yeah, so my journey is very similar to Grant's, just a few different players, but my entrepreneurship journey really started before I even decided on Tepper. I remember reaching out actually to the alumni network and the current student network to really test what the food system and CPG folks were like in the CMU ecosystem, because I knew I wanted to leave big food, but stay in food from a more startup approach. So I actually got connected to Grant. He was kind of the inbound when I reached out from a prospective student standpoint. And he was like, hey, let's chat. I would love to talk all things food. We had a very similar background. Ended up talking for an hour about CMU, about startups, and then ultimately about Fifth Season and all of his work there. So I think that was 6 months before even writing the first tuition check, where I knew I needed to be a Schwartz Fellow. I needed to work at Fifth Season, right? Apparently my life was planned out for me before I even stepped in the door, which was really exciting to see. And then I was like, okay, I'll go test all these waters. Do a little bit of the corporate recruiting, realize that's absolutely not for me, but I went back to business school. I know, Dave, but I needed to really make sure I was getting the full picture. So quickly became a Schwartz Fellow, and with that cohort of Schwartz Fellows and Innovation Scholars, actually met an Innovation Scholar, so an undergraduate robotics student, where he and I worked together to solve automation in the food industry, but more from a ghost kitchen perspective. So dabbled in that while also continuing to work with Grant and Austin on some Fifth Season ideas through my first year to see where I wanted to net out for a summer internship. Always found my Fifth Season work the most interesting. So came on in the summer for my internship in a product management role. And that was really the genesis of D2C, right? COVID had hit. Austin, Grant, and I are saying, hey, the product is coming out of the farm. The greens are great, but we need more, right? We need higher dollars per pound. And we also need value-added products to meet the consumer where the consumer is today. So that's when we developed and went into Millie's Ice Cream Factory, salads for direct to consumer. So that was where the kind of birth of that whole SKU line came. And then I ultimately did similar to what Grant did, kind of got sat down by him instead of Austin and said, hey, your second year is coming. You front loaded your first year. What are your thoughts on really working full time in a bigger capacity and taking on consumer products? So had a lot of learning outside the classroom, inside the Schwartz Center, just given COVID, and really felt like Grant, Austin, and I could take sales on with these new product lines. So my second year worked full time, and then obviously came into the head of consumer products role where I am today after graduation. So that's my background, but wouldn't have been possible without all of the connections at the Schwartz Center and really meeting Grant and Austin from day one of my Tepper journey and continuing to see the evolution of Fifth Season.
I think what's most impressive is how each of you took, your own personal plan and utilized the resources that were in front of you, because we can make the resources available, but if you don't utilize them, then they're useless. And so kudos to you all for using the networks that are here and the resources. I think probably the audience, Austin, would like to hear a little bit about the plans for the future. The company's been around for 5 years in various stages and evolutions, and you've now gotten your first successfully proven technology in the farm in Braddock, PA. You're looking at expanding. What are the next steps for Fifth Season here?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're really excited about the future, right? So you heard a little bit about we got started to radically redefine and dramatically upgrade what fresh food can and should taste like. And then we wanted to take that a step further and make it also easier and more convenient to access. And we always talk about how our technology makes that possible, but I'm really glad everyone on this phone call really gets to see how it's also our people that make that possible. And it wouldn't have happened without Grant and Emily to help us take that from 0 to 1, which is the most important entrepreneurial piece that you learn from folks like Dave throughout school. So as we move forward, we want to take these greens and these ready to eat grab and go salad kits that solve, your lunch needs and your lifestyle in a different way. We want to then expand that into other markets and into other customers. And we can do that by not only expanding our product lines with additional amazing ideas and sort of our pathway that we've got through Emily's team, but also through building additional facilities and increasing our square footage. So right now we're plans to be expanding into Columbus with 180,000 square foot facility. So 3x the size of the Braddock facility that you just saw in the video. Expanding by 3 product lines as well is a key way for us to not only grow revenue and actually hitting the demand that way outstrips our supply at places like Giant Eagle and GetGo and Sheetz where we're at today, but also into other big customers that we started to pull on, such as a Kroger, which is obviously the biggest grocer in the country and rivals even Walmart when you think about some of the numbers across food sales. So we're really excited about that. And there's going to be more farms even beyond Pittsburgh and Columbus. We've got about 1.6 million square feet that we've generally identified and need to build. And we do have excess demand that's about 10-ish farms of the Braddock capacity. So really excited to be able to go and fulfill that.
Great. Quick follow-up, Austin. We have about 90 of our CMU Tepper alums that are with us today, and they're a great resource. What are a few of the big needs that you have in growing Fifth Season over the next few years that maybe some of the folks in the audience can help with?
Yeah, absolutely. And then certainly Grant and Emily, feel free to hop on for anything that you think I missed, which will probably be a few things. Well, it's always about more customers, right? It's always about better talent, right? And getting more talent. And we're going to be expanding our team 50 corporate heads to 150 over the next 12 to 18 months. And so it's around being able to accelerate from a business development, accelerate from a talent perspective, and accelerate from a pure customer perspective as well. We also will and can't talk about certain elements on the fundraising side, but anytime and always being able to get anyone who's passionate and wants to be a part of the team through the cap table, we'd always love to be able to talk about that as well. Grant, Emily, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on that or any specifics that might help.
Yeah, the big benefit that I think a lot of people here can help us with is driving brand awareness. So right now, the household penetration of ready-to-eat salad bowls is only at 25%. This product line is fantastic. It's a great grab-and-go meal solution. So if you are in a work-from-home life and you need lunch on deck in your fridge, or if you're an on-the-go lifestyle and you need a reliable, healthy option wherever you may be, our products are perfect for that. Not enough people know about it. So our marketing plans for 2022 are really about getting the word out there in a big way. So if you can go to if you're in the US and you're in the regions where our products are currently sold, Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, we're available over 300 locations there. And then we'll be launching into Kroger in March. As Austin mentioned, please tell your friends and family. You can also go online and buy it. We'll make sure to message that in the chat here.
Shameless plug, fifthseasonfresh.com. Buy products.
Salads at convenience stores are no longer cringeworthy. They are flavor explosions. Emily, do you have anything you want to add there?
No, all good. Just because we're all data people, to benchmark Grant's 25% salad kit penetration rate. The category as a whole has 80% penetration. So we have a long way to go and would appreciate all your help to get there specifically with salad kits.
All right. This next question is for Grant and Emily. I'd like to both hear both of your responses, but you came to Tepper, as junior employees or grown into middle level employees at the organizations that you're with, and you go through the Tepper experience, and all of a sudden you're in the C-suite. right, of a fast and growing company. What was the biggest surprise in that journey from you, and then how did you tackle it?
Scaling companies is really hard. Dave, you've been a tremendous resource to me throughout my entire journey here. Everybody through the Sorts Fellows program has been, that I've been connected to, has been really helpful in guiding me here. I think the biggest, you've always got to balance working in the business and working on the business, and being really clear about your priorities for when you need to really hit the leadership team hard, or when you really need to hit the processes hard, or when you really just have to say, screw it, we're going to ship the product. Those tough decisions, there's not always an answer to it. And so, making sure that you're really good at brutal prioritization, I think is something that was, you told us from day one that that's what it was going to take as an entrepreneur, but really being in it, that's something that still is a challenge today. And I'm thankful that this is a leadership team that, we love working with, and we've got great advisors who help us every single day to prioritize what to do next. That's probably what I would say.
Yeah, I think for me, to build off of what Grant's saying, mine is more around hiring. I just personally hadn't had that much exposure, right? And now we're looking at hiring at anywhere from a CFO position and someone with 35 years of experience, right? And we're sitting there on the interview panel to a food scientist for my team. And what's really been helpful is leveraging the CMU network of experienced individuals, especially like Tony Moscato, for example, right? Where he's giving us feedback or giving me feedback on a job description or what to look at, because he's looked at this 40 times over and it's been my first time. So a lot of the learning there for me has been in hiring, but I've really tackled it through looking to our advisory network, both within Tepper and then also within kind of the indoor ag space as a whole.
Right. And I'm glad you answered the questions the way you did, because I think one of the things that we tend to take for granted is the value of the networks that we have. And this Tepper network that we have, this Carnegie Mellon network we have, there's some of the most talented people in the world that have created some of the most game-changing, world-changing products, like the iPhone. I always say to everybody, did you know the iPhone was invented by a CMU person? And most people don't know that, right? So, for all of you listening today, take advantage of these networks. There's always somebody out there willing to help you to take the next step in your career and in your life. Given that we have a really robust set of questions coming up in the Q&A box, and if you have questions, please do put them in there. I'm going to switch gears and take some questions from the audience directed to the panelists. So the first is from Cornelia, and she's asking about to comment on the nutritional content of what you're growing versus what is grown in the soil, and also how do you handle things like plastic packaging? Is it compostable? Is it recyclable? What's the plan of action there?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start with the compostable, recyclable. So today our packaging is recyclable on our salad kits. On our greens, we actually just moved to new packaging that has 40% less plastic. So you'll see it's a peel on top versus a closed lid. We are constantly evaluating compostable packaging. Unfortunately, right now, we've actually done a broad investigation of the kind of whole compost package landscape, and it's not there for produce or for things that need to sit on the shelf for around 10 to 14 days because of the moisture that it puts in the compostable packaging. If you think of like a bowl you get from Honeygrow, for example. So still keeping a very close eye on when that develops. A channel that works in, right, is your on-demand, so your Uber Eats and things like that, but not, unfortunately, yet for the retail shelves. But we're taking strides in the plastic world to reduce that, like we did on the leafy greens.
Great.
And then, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say that's awesome. How about on the nutrient content in fifth season grown versus soil grown? Yeah,
so that, because we are really giving the plants an IV of what they need, we are much higher in minerals and nutrients, especially on spinach, for example, and higher protein contents than Western grown produce. I don't know, Grant, if you have anything you want to add on that.
Yeah,
but
a lot of the blends that we grow are with seeds that you don't typically find on shelf either. So the Three Rivers blend, the product that you saw in the video, that's got some really healthy. Dave, I actually think that's your favorite product.
It is.
That's got some That's got some leaves in some unique greens that you can't find in traditional Western or conventional grown products. We've got broccoli seeds, some spicy mustard seeds, and a lot of these have antioxidants in them. That's that darker green color that you see with those leaves. We can actually influence that from the lighting inside of the facility. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time working on with our food science team and some of our food product development processes is focusing on getting up that nutrient content, getting up those antioxidants, and making it a really powerful visual experience. You said you weren't a foodie, Dave, but that's your favorite one, and that's our most nutrient forward evocative blend.
And it's got spice built into it. I can't figure out quite what the spice is. It might be the mustard, but I love it. Yeah. The next question comes from our colleague Chris, who's in the world of sustainability, and he has three different questions. But I'm gonna zoom in on the second question that he has, and are there macrobiotics that need to be added or addressed because the farm is so fully isolated versus living soils? That pre-industrial ag, and what are the field crops grown on? So what's the comparison, the contrast between how you grow them in isolation versus how they're grown in the real world?
Yeah, I can take that, team. So so we grow with the form of hydroponics. We do leverage a different media and soil base. So it's a peat perlite mix versus you could use things like rock wool, but those are one-time use and have unnatural elements in those. And so we grow with the flood and drain hydroponic version. So this allows us to do everything in a contained tray and be able to stack in all of those instances. In terms of how you think about what does it look like in that compared to a soil-based versus soil-less type system, everything that we bring from a nutrient standpoint is in the nutrient-rich water, right? So we're able to take Pittsburgh's finest, right? We filter that down into a base water, and then we add nutrients, and we're able to create any form of nutrient mix that we want to, and really be able to, as Emily was mentioning, dial in very specifically. So whether it's dialing in specifically with light spectrum, as I think Grant mentioned earlier, you're able to do the same as you dial in on a nutrient mix standpoint. So as opposed to a lot of wasted spectrum or a lot of wasted nutrients, everything that's going in is dialed in specifically per a grow recipe that our horticultural scientists, our grow R&D teams are setting. And it's kind of like a smart oven that's going to mix your cake, bake your cake, and cut your cake, and do it the same way every single time. When it scans that same QR code, we're able to do that. And so it's one of those where I think a lot of people think, hey, what is the difference? In a lot of cases, it's very additive as we think about how dialed in our grow recipe can be. And again, we're able to really dictate all of those kind of, just like a human taking vitamins. If you do that at all the right times and you create a healthier plant, and then we cut that and get that to your door within 24 hours, you just have a fresher, more alive plant than you would get from Western ground.
Great. Real quick question that I think this will be near and dear to your heart, Austin. It's from an anonymous attendee, but they are in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you grew up in Chapel Hill, not too far from there. And the question is, would you consider expanding to North Carolina?
Yes, and we are looking to expand to North Carolina now in terms of what we see over the next few years. In general, when we think about our customer pull demand, right, Pittsburgh is really wonderfully situated in between the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic, and even the Northeast. When you think about the customers that we're starting to bring on, and when you think about a Kroger and the fact that Kroger does own Harris Teeter, and we just brought on a senior VP of sales who also has strong relationships with the Publix, we will continue to be pulled down into the Southeast. And we are really looking forward to whether we think about around the Henderson, North Carolina food distribution corridor, or in the Raleigh area. Just given that it's also where I am from, as Dave mentioned, there's a couple of really great distribution points that we're looking at there, and that will really allow us to go and fulfill that demand from customers that exist today, as well as some customers that we don't yet have a relationship with, but are anticipating will begin in the not too distant future.
I'm going to sort of amalgamate a bunch of questions together that came from different folks. One from my classmate, Henry. Hey, Henry, how you doing? And the first is on international expansion. You talked about sort of the geographic expansion you're doing here. Is that in the long-term picture for fifth season? And also, you're creating great technology. Would you consider licensing that technology to somebody else to run a farm?
Yeah. So I'll kickstart, and then Grant, Emily, and Grant, especially when we think about the international, since we're talking to a few folks, we can add some elements there. So we are thinking about international expansion. You have to be really careful in speaking of brutal prioritization and focus to not immediately jump and say, hey, we'd like to go and do this internationally. So we got to make sure we build our way to that. We do certainly have a lot of inbound interest. A lot of local markets, if you will, across the globe are just different than the others. And so there's a bit of a playbook there that quite honestly, we haven't been focused on and probably weren't ready for. But we are in conversations very specifically in one part of the world, and potentially going to be working with a partner there from a joint venture standpoint to take the technology that we're building that in Braddock can actually be anywhere in the world, and be able to leverage that in communities and cities and in regions of the world that need product. And in some cases, even more so than the US. If you think about the MENA region, you have huge areas that are just not amenable to local production given the desert characteristics. So we're really, really excited about that. And I believe there was another question, Dave, and I just can't remember off the top of my mind what the second question was.
It was about licensing and franchising farms.
Yeah. So I think one of the first instances where we can think about licensing farms and go from selling pounds to selling subscription dollars is potentially even some of our current customers today around transforming supply chains, helping them vertically integrate without the headache, and really changing the way that they think about their supply reliability. I think in terms of more of the individual franchisee, I think there's some more work to go. I think as our costs continue to come down, I think more of the margins expand enough to where then that exists as a viable business prop for the franchisee, not just the franchisor. But it's very much a part of what we knew we'd create that market over time, and we're certainly looking at it and are very interested in that in the future in a number of different ways.
Right. This is a question from Cornelia again, and I know you guys have been very progressive in supporting underserved communities and food deserts, but her question was, would you consider supplying public school systems, particularly those that are trying to help solve the food insecurity problem? And maybe you can talk about some specific programs you already have in place.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. We're actually working on a proposal for the Pittsburgh Public Schools right now. So we hope to be able to be a partner for them in 2022. Healthy food is not prevalent enough in our food systems, specifically in our school system. So we've been on Carnegie Mellon and Pitt's campus for quite some time now. Those two universities is a big sector for us. 2022, we are trying to actively break into the public school systems. We're at a couple high schools around Pittsburgh with some of our grab and go salads and selling some of our bulk greens. So that is a really important channel for us. And what we found is that when you tell kids this fresh lettuce was made by robots, all of a sudden the greens aren't so icky to the kids anymore. They really get excited to eat them. So that's been fun to watch.
And just to quickly,
Yeah. Emily, I think you're hitting it right now.
Yeah. So to build off of Grant's point in terms of underserved, we actually are the first company ever to have a food presence at the Free Store in Braddock. So we installed a fridge there and actually earmarked supply for that every single week. So we have a delivery where that fridge is completely stocked for the community to come in, grab salads, grab greens. We also do giveaways within the Braddock community for their special events, but everyone knows that they can get all of our product at the Free Store on a weekly basis whenever it's open. I don't know if that's what you were going to add, Austin, but that was my build.
Yep, spot on. Yep.
This is a question from Lauren, who I had as an undergraduate student, and she's recently tried the product. You brought it to her apartment building, and she's shared it with her fellow tenants. But as someone debating on getting an MBA versus different certifications, I'm wondering what the value that the MBA brought to you. So that's for all three of you to answer. Is an MBA a good choice for somebody who's advancing their career, but particularly for entrepreneurs, since the theme of this is entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I'll start and be quick, and everyone, please add, because I think we all have different perspectives on this. I think that in general, going to get your MBA is a launch pad to almost an infinite number of potential possibilities, right? It really is a launch pad. It can allow for career change. It can allow for just so many new opportunities. A lot of it being because of the network. You do get to learn a number of really important items that you may not have learned in the past or through experience, but so much of it, I think, comes in the form of network and resources across the school, and then leveraging the entire university and not just necessarily one program when you are getting that degree, I think was a big part of what certainly I was trying to hit on as well. So I think there's a lot of really, really strong benefit to getting your MBA, but everyone's different, right? One of our co-founders was thinking about getting the MBA for the longest time, and then inevitably didn't, and maybe more of an executive MBA type of candidate in the future. But that would be my thought so far, and that it really opens up a lot of doors and may get you to what you're thinking about.
Yeah, the exposure that you get from your network to problems that exist in the world is really valuable. It's such a rich experience of being able to look at other industries, be able to look at other types of challenges, and as Austin mentioned, come together with people who are like-minded as you to try and solve things and ultimately create your own dent in the world. So I would agree with everything that you said, Austin.
Yeah, I echo both of them. I think for me, I was on a more technical path than both Austin and Grant. So I did not come from the business side. I was more science. So this really opened up the doors. I didn't want anyone really to tell me I couldn't do a role because of my previous background. So the MBA really gave me that certificate to do whatever I please in the business world.
Yeah. This is more of a comment from one of our alumni, Al Keen, who is a PhD from CMU and was on faculty. He spun out a company in 1963 called Management Science Associates. You may see it at the corner of 5th and Penn as you drive around the city. But he was pointing out a lot of food company synergies that were developed over time that actually led to the start of Management Game. So Al, I think it's probably a good idea for you to reach out to the Fifth Season team and share with them some of your experiences. Another question. Nob and a few others. Nob is one of our great entrepreneurial alums based in New York City right now. And he is asking, are there other foods that Fifth Season can manufacture? Is it just greens? Can you do vegetables? Can you do fruits? What else?
Yes. Yeah. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is you have to build to that, and there's more work to do. So we certainly focus on leafy greens, microgreens, and herbs because they have small root structures, they're fast life cycle crops, and they have a lot of high value, right? And so in other words, price per pound, right? So those certainly work well. Now, one element we think about in terms of these other products that I think a lot of other folks in the space miss, and again, when you think about the technology we built, the 3 key codes we cracked are the economics code, the repeatability code, and then again, the differentiated products code. When we start to open up value-added products and the ability to do those faster and cheaper than other groups that maybe try to grow crops in a similar fashion to us, there's an entire value-added space on that ease of access and convenience, and again, lifestyle empowerment that we're thinking about, right? And I'll let Emily hit a few of those value adds in just one second. In terms of the other veggies, we do think about things like tomatoes, strawberries, cucumbers, peppers, but there's some more work to do in terms of thinking about growing tomatoes or growing strawberries completely inside of a vertical farm. And what I mean by that is there's some more grow R&D work to do. There's some more genomics and genetics work to do. But what we certainly see today in terms of, okay, how you think about additional veggies within the next 5 years, for example, if there's grow R&D work to do, is also in the form of leveraging our technology, not just inside vertical farms, but also inside greenhouses. And maybe starting to do things differently than you may think about, such as tomato youngling production inside of a vertical farm and mature production in a greenhouse. You can start reducing costs and increasing turns today. So we're really excited around how we can continue to do that. And you just start to see crops look a bit different. But Emily, if you wanted to just really quickly hit some of the ideas that we're starting to think about development on from a value add standpoint that might help.
Yeah, sure. So within the current products that Austin was mentioning, right, the leafy greens that we grow, herbs, microgreens, we're really looking at category expansion of our existing. So that's looking at our salad kits, right, understanding what fun partnerships or what new types of salads we want to launch. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect is if it's not salads and it's not leafy greens, do we want to go into dips? Do we want to go into juices and dressings? So really deciding what that next category is as well that we want to expand into, really to make fresh ubiquitous and make that with Fifth Season and our branding and our products coming out of the farm.
Great. Super. Another more comment than question. Jeff, alum from the early 1990s, works at Rockwell Automation, and he's impressed with what you guys have done. Automation at full scale, he says. So if you have any needs for contacts at Rockwell, reach out to Jeff, and I have his contact information, so I'm happy to do that. We had another anonymous question, and it is about sort of next steps in fundraising. So what's the next fundraising round that you're looking to do? And from an operations standpoint, and I know you focused on unit economics, are you nearing profitability at an operational level? What are some of the financial metrics with, being a private company? Don't share anything that you don't want to share, but if there's something you can share that gives folks sort of a sense of the evolution, that would be helpful.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So we've raised about $75 million to date, as I mentioned. So the next round that we're looking at is about a quantum of 100 to 125 million. So happy to chat around that opportunity. There are a couple different paths to that. One of which we are very much in right now from a process standpoint. So would love to for you to reach out and for us to talk around that. In terms of profitability on the operational level, yes, it's one of the key things we've been focused on from the beginning, right, is cracking that unit economics code. A number of our competitors that try to grow in a similar way under LED, for example, are unfortunately losing money for every pound that they sell. And the reason is for all of the items that we've really solved. So as we've continued to ramp up this facility and we look at the cost that we've been able to prove out across labor and energy and our materials inputs, we are profitable at the farm level, and it can sometimes depend on mix. But if we sell, sort of our goal from a salad kits perspective, I'll just sort of share at a high level that we can start to do things in our Braddock facility of around 16 million of revenue, for example, and anywhere from 5 to 7 million of EBITDA. So we're really excited around what we've been able to prove there. And of course, we're just at the beginning. So when you think about our cost curve and the ability for us to continue taking cost out, whether that's labor or it's energy, or it's just purely from economies of scale, there's so much more for us to go. And so we're really excited about that because it allows us to expand margins, even in the commodity greens world as well, where maybe in some cases where their margins are closer to 5 to 10%. So we're really excited about that as we move forward.
Another one of my 1990 class members, George, who has been in the grocery business as well, loves what you're doing, but he's curious about how you tackle the last mile issue in your subscription model and where you're going with that.
Yeah, that was a great question, George. When we first launched that, we were really leveraging some of the MVP methodologies and philosophies that Dave helped us out with. We were all driving those to people's doorsteps for some of the first weeks of subscribers that we ever had. Now we have a last mile delivery partner here locally in town. They do a lot of the Blue Apron, HelloFresh, the Freshly deliveries. That partner we've worked with for over a year. They're a great partner for us. We had to get up to the minimums though, and getting that flywheel started took a lot of work for us.
Okay, well, we're coming down to the end here, and this was a question that was supplied to John Sengenberger ahead of it, but I'd like all three of you to answer if you could. It's what's been the most memorable moment in the journey for you, and as sort of a follow-up, what was the toughest time, and how did you figure out the solution to that tough problem along the way?
There's so many that's hard to answer. resilience is one of our core values, and this is a really hard business. And there have been many times where you think, can I possibly dig even deeper from a grit standpoint? And I think we've had to as an organization. And so, man, that may be hard to pick one. But I think last year, maybe the one I'll pick is we were in the middle of fundraising right when the pandemic hit. We were getting shorter and shorter on cash because we had gotten a little bit crunched from construction timelines and then additional construction costs. It's the first time managing an external developer for our Braddock facility. And so our runway got a little bit shorter. We had to go raise. And of course, everyone knows after the first 60 days, right, investment world was pretty frothy, but there was about 60 days there where everyone was thinking about portfolio triage. And it came down to, right at the time when we were starting to be 0 days left in the bank, right? I mean, literally getting to that level of being short. And so I'd say that was one of the hardest times in general as an organization that we had to get through. But I think we ended up coming out on the other side stronger than we have been. We've been able to have an industry best capital efficiency. And what we've done, at this point, we only spent 50 of the 75, right? 50 million in 5 years is what others in the space have taken 15 years and 450 million. So I think it makes us stronger. I think some of my proudest moments are ones like that I mentioned, or being able to be on the phone with people like Grant and Emily is certainly there. But I think one thing I always think about was that feeling when we got our first 400K, because I literally just sat down for optimization and pricing class and saw that come through and just thought, oh, this is amazing, right? And now my whole second year is going to be pretty much nothing but fifth season. So lots of good wins too, but that's probably one that sticks out.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
I think one of the best days was actually a recent memory. For those of you that maybe didn't have the opportunity to see it, in Pittsburgh Magazine, you can go read about a 100-foot super slide we put up right on Pitt's campus, right in between outside of the Carnegie Art Museum. We were giving out free salads for anybody who rode the slide. It's a great way to raise awareness. That same day, actually, or I think it was the day after, we painted the fence at CMU with Eat Fifth Season. In that night, I went and saw the fence, and Emily came with me, and we just kind of had an opportunity to reflect on how far the brand has come and really how far the company has come. And I got a photo the next day of somebody eating a salad on Carnegie Mellon's campus. So that was over the course of a couple of days. That was really, really cool to see how far we've come. Austin mentioned some of the hard days. I mean, Dave, when you asked earlier about being in a C-suite after being an individual contributor, the resiliency, we have come so close. We've done a lot of laps around the sun, but the being able to fight through that, there are a lot of really hard times. Being able to fight through that is what makes the leadership team so close together. And I'm thankful that we've been able to come out on the other side for a lot of those things.
Yeah. So for me, being the product person, I have two product stories here, one good, one bad. The most memorable by far for me, to date, has really been, it's been my dream since being at Mondelez, right? Leveraging the power of big and small. And so one of the goals that Grant and I had been working on was what type of partnership can we do to elevate the brand to a national stage, and also really introduce a new eating occasion or new usage behavior for a big national brand. So we actually are working on and launching a partnership with Sabra to use their dips as dressings and change the way that people traditionally think about that, right? Because in other parts of the world, huge amounts of people put hummus on salads, but not here. So having the ability in Fifth Season providing the stage, right, to launch a product like that, change behavior while also combining a national brand. So that's definitely the most memorable. In terms of a tough time, I think it was right when Austin and Grant wanted to launch salads, and we had launched 2 weeks into the pandemic. Everyone's, rightfully so, really worried about COVID. And then I get a call that I think we have a product recall on our hands from our head of quality because the carrots are spoiled and we don't know why, right? So the whole world is worried, and I'm also potentially making them sicker based off of our ingredient. Turns out that was not the case. They decided to just ship us the same lot coat of carrots for 3 weeks, and it wasn't a food safety, more as just a spoilage. But that was a pretty rough day when we were about to issue a recall to all of our first consumers and those who were potentially the most loyal, because we had a supply chain issue. So those are my two buckets there.
Great insights. Thank you for sharing them, Emily, Grant, and Austin. A wonderful job, and we wish you the best of success. And if you can, get out to a Giant Eagle, a Get-Go, a Sheetz, Market, Whole Foods, and buy your fifth season greens today. I promise you'll be happy about it. John.
Well, thank you. So impressed by our 4 alumni who are represented on this call today. And for all that you're doing. We're excited to have so many alumni be able to experience this. We know more will be looking at this online. So thank you so much. Stay close to the school and to the university, and we look forward to seeing you again and watching your success from nearby.